Most of us think trauma is emotional, something that you get over in your head. But what if the reason was anxiety, startle, response, and chronic stress? And if it's let me start this over. I'm sorry. Okay.
For sure.
One, two, three. Most of us think trauma is emotional, something that you get over in your head. But what if the reason anxiety, startle, response, and chronic stress stick around isn't emotional at all, but it's biological? Today's conversation isn't about trauma as a story. It's about trauma as a physical condition that lives in the nervous system. We're going to go beyond the conversation of post-traumatic stress disorder toward a new understanding called PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury, and what it means for real healing. Now, Dr. Eugene, it has spent decades leading research and clinical work in the intersection of the brain, body, and trauma recovery. So I want to just dive into this because this really excites me because, I am so interested in all this stuff because so many people struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder. They struggle with trauma. And there are so many different ways that we could learn how to overcome the things we go through in life. But a lot of people don't know where to begin. So when stress or trauma occurs, it isn't just a memory in the body that changes with it. So Dr. Lipov, works with trauma and he creates measurable biological changes in the nervous system, not just with emotional stories. But what does the science show about trauma becoming a biological condition?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. So my perspective is physiological. So I like to say psychology is biology or physiology, meaning in the modern age, you can actually measure trauma instead of just saying, well, it's kind of there, kind of not there. So people
Right.
talk about PTSD is an invisible wound. I was
Mhm.
at a big military fundraiser. People are still using the term invisible wound. So to
Yes.
me, it's invisible if you have the wrong scanner. If you have the right scanner, such as functional MRI or PET scans, you can actually see a brain change when somebody has trauma.
Right.
And when you treat it successfully, you can reverse that on a scanner. And so let's say somebody has anxiety and they're hypervigilant and all of that stuff is going on. So if you treat them successfully, we'll talk about at least the treatment I pioneered, and then you can do a brain scan afterwards, you can actually see measurable change. That's what I mean by that. So
Wow.
that knowledge, that's why it's so important to think of PTSD as a real condition that actually does happen. It's not a weakness of the soul. You're not sure it exists or it doesn't exist. I'm pretty sure it exists because they actually see it. So if
Yes.
you take that perspective, then I think, first of all, it gives you respect for yourself. So
Yes.
I have been following work of Dr. Frank Ackbert. He came up with the term PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury, meaning
Mhm.
there is a biological, physiological change that is measurable, thus
Mhm.
it's real. In fact, I did a study, 3,000 people, I asked them, what would happen if you change the name PTSD to PTSI?
Right.
Majority said that they will have more hope for resolution of the problems. The stigma will get better, and they will
Mhm.
go see care. All good things. So
Yes.
I've been trying to change that name for the last 5 years. I went to American Psychiatric Association in 2024, and they told me, no, thank you, we're not changing it yet. Get more data. So now I'm in a mission to get 100,000 people to go there. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask your listeners to go on the website itsptsi.com. Itsptsi.com. If you can fill out the form, I cannot have too many forms. I can have too little. So my
Mhm.
hope is that we can get between 10,000, hopefully 100,000 forms filled out in the next 6 months. I'm going to go back to the American Psychiatric Association and say, please change the name because
Right.
it could save lives. So that's kind of my perspective. So it's basic biology to me.
Right. Now, why do some people get stuck even when life looks normal?
Okay. So, well, let's talk about what PTSD is, what it's not.
Okay.
It's not this amorphous, non-specific thing.
Hmm.
So there are a couple of interesting statistics. So one, if you expose men and women to the same trauma, exactly the same, let's say military trauma, whatever, women develop PTSD at twice the rate of men. So I believe that's because of the fight and flight system is more sensitive than the guys. The guys just don't develop it at the same pace. So when trauma happens, keep in mind, not everybody develops PTSD. So if you take a unit, military unit, let's say 12 people, half die during military action. About 25% of men will develop PTSD from that. Not everybody. Right. It depends on genetics. It depends on how your body perceives trauma. And it also depends on a substance called NGF, nerve growth factor. So when somebody has exposed to severe trauma, two things happen. One, norepinephrine is secreted. Norepinephrine is adrenaline's brother. So it gives you a revved up environment, and people feel they can sleep, they have hypervigilance, they have all of that, right?
Yeah.
But if trauma is severe enough or over enough period of time, like bullying, let's say, BNGF is produced, or NGF is produced, and that produces extra nerve fibers in the brain. It's called sprouting. That's been shown in the rat model, that produces more norepinephrine. And if it's maintained like that, people have symptoms like that, potentially forever. Like I took care of a guy who was injured in Vietnam 50 years prior. So he had it for 50 years. He had addictions, he had all type of things. Turns out, when somebody has severe trauma, those extra nerve fibers, is called sympathetic fibers, grow in the brain. That's been shown, no question, right? That seems to be controlled through stellate ganglion, which is a nexus in the neck of fight and flight nervous system, going from the chest to the neck to the brain. So I found in 2006, if I do an injection there, that's been done since 1925, called stellate ganglion block, in about 5 minutes, people can take a deep breath and they feel better. But it can also last years. The longest outlier right now is 17 years out. So to me, the reason I love doing it, one, I love to see people get better. Two, it has a different perspective. Before, psychiatric trauma has always been thinking this weakness of the soul or whatever, self-doubt. If you look at it as a biological condition like a broken leg, you can treat it and fix it. Right? Because it's not a lifestyle. You should not have a lifestyle of PTSD, because PTSD untreated does a number of things. One, you can pass it down to your children 2-3 generations. Terrible. It can increases the chance of heart attacks by a factor of 2. 85% of men with trauma, with PTSD, develop sexual dysfunction, which does not lead to a lot of good things, obviously. My father had PTSD from World War II. So he came home, he gave to my mother, it's called secondary PTSD. You can actually catch PTSD. We can talk about that as well. So I eventually took her life. So I'm a big proponent of stopping the cycle.
Yes.
I know it was a lot of information condensed, so we can unpack it if you like.
Sure. Now, the word shapes how we think about suffering. So post-traumatic stress disorder labels trauma as a disorder. Something is wrong with the person. Post-traumatic stress injury, it is based on an injury, something that happened to the nervous system. Now, the change in the language matters. Like, how does labeling trauma as an injury change the recovery strategy?
Well, the first thing is, I see a lot of people who had, especially women, they say, you know, I've never been to war, I've never been raped, yet I have PTSD. How could I possibly have PTSD?
Yeah.
Well, then you ask them about childhood, and they go, well, yeah, I had a very hard childhood. I had bullying, whatever. There's a lot of different things that can cause them. Number one thing is, if you can look at it as a biological condition, it's much easier to believe you may have it. You start to look for the symptoms, right? Because first, when you second guess yourself, do I have this problem? Do I not have a problem? I don't know. That creates uncertainty and a problem, which is not a good thing for anyone. So once you start to look at that as a biological condition, And if you truly believe that, like here, then
Mm-hmm.
you seek care. And then you start to look for biological treatments, such as stellate ganglion block. It's basically numbing up fight and flight nervous system, resetting it. That's a very clear biological intervention as opposed to psychological intervention. So let's look at a computer on similarity, analogy of a computer. When a chip is broken, you can have all patches you want on software. It's not going to work. You've got to
Right.
fix the chip, and then the software updates will work, right? So if you think somebody had trauma, it's like a computer revving up continuously. What do? The first thing you do is Control Alt Delete, right? You reboot the computer. So stellate reboots the computer to pre-trauma state. And that's a great thing because it's fast.
Yeah.
So one, it's easy to accept. So compliance is very high. If somebody comes in to see me, they're getting on the table, they're getting a procedure, right? Done.
Right.
You don't have to wait a long time for it to work. And
Right.
then what we also find is psychological intervention work very much better after we calm the people down.
Yeah. Now, what does like does the stigma persist around stress conditions?
Oh, huge. Stigma kills. No question about it. Stigma absolutely kills. So don't take my word for it. So let me tell you the history of PTSI. One of my
Yeah.
favorite people are interested in my history. Please go to my website, itsptsi.com. After doing a survey, look at news samples, whatever. Anyway, so the two people who were trying to change in 2013. It was Frank Ogbert. He came up with the term Stockholm Syndrome, very famous psychiatrist. And then he united forces with Peter Chiarelli. He was a four-star general in charge of suicide prevention for U.S. Army. And then the reason he got involved, he was a line officer, he was not a physician. He basically said, my guys are coming, telling me the stigma is preventing them seeking care.
Yeah.
So that's why he, being a military man, went to American Psychiatric Association and said, please change the name because my guys are killing themselves. You'd think that'd be enough for APA to do it, but no, they didn't. So it has a direct effect. There's a number of publications saying if a condition is stigmatized, it
Mhm.
leads to other side effects. So for example, not to use a derogatory term, leper. So leprosy, people were stigmatized and put in leprosy colonies, and it didn't go well.
Mhm.
So this is the same. This is modern day leprosy. But
Right.
now we do have before, think about it. So history of, if you don't mind, let me go over the names that people have used for PTSD. Original term was used by the Romans. It's called the tremble, 2,000 years ago. In the modern era,
Mhm.
it was still soldier's heart in Civil War.
Mhm.
Then shell shock, World War I, World War II, battle fatigue, Vietnam syndrome, and now in 1980 it became PTSD. The names keep changing, the symptoms are the same. In Russia,
Yeah.
it's called Chechnya syndrome. High suicide rate, can't sleep, sexual dysfunction, miserable, depression, anxiety, all of that.
Right. Now, what happens when people feel judged instead of validated?
You really asking that question? uh, well, I probably asked that question, but let me do the best I can.
Okay.
So I have developed this armor around me because I've been judged for many years. Oh, first time I came up with a new application for stellate ganglion block, the injection that I do for PTSD now, was for hot flashes. So get a load of this story. So in 2005, Chicago Tribune came in to do a story about me. They said it's working so great, it's marvelous, blah, 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 whatever. They come in, the first line in Chicago Tribune, big paper in Chicago, the biggest paper,
Yeah.
was Bianca Kennedy, this beautiful breast cancer survivor, was so desperate to get rid of her hot flashes, she
Mhm.
let Dr. Lipov plunge a syringe needle to her neck. So my friends still call me needle plunger after that. Then they went to Northwestern where I went to medical school, and I went to the OB/GYN department, and the chief goes, "This is not how we train our people. This is terrible, blah, 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 blah." Then they go to Rush, where I did my fellowship, and they go, "Oh my God, this is just terrible. We didn't teach him to do it like that. It's terrible, 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 terrible."
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, 7 years later, Northwestern gets a $4 million grant to investigate hot flashes to see how cell ganglion block works for hot flashes. So the point is, I mean, the way I deal with stigma, fascinating. I really don't care.
Yeah.
And if I see the result and I know I'm right, it's not arrogance. It's just being self-respectful.
Right.
I listen to very few people, primarily my wife. If she tells me I'm doing something wrong, then I'm doing something wrong. Short of that, there's so many reasons people tell you things to try to stigmatize it, to make you feel bad, to do this, to do that. And especially even that, considering my mother took her life, I'm particularly sensitive to women being stigmatized. And unfortunately, women like to help themselves to stigmatize themselves. They don't need much help already, but they're getting stigmatized a lot of times by themselves. A lot of negative self-talk, whatever, rumination. But the point is, all of that is nothing more than just neurological system misbehaving. And that is fixable, right? Because they were trained that way, whatever the reason. The point is, you can't get out of that cycle. So to me, nobody commits suicide if they have hope. If you have hope, that's the key. Right. So to me, if you look at brain as a biological machine, yes, it produces a mind, maybe ethereal plane, I don't know. But brain is biologic. So Egyptians thought the brain was there to send out, so the brain never heated. So the body didn't overheat. So it's like a radiator. Right. So Phileas Cage, have you heard that name?
Phileas Cage, no.
So here's let me tell you a famous story, which kind of makes my point. So this was in 19th century. This gentleman was a manager where they were digging tunnels through mountains for railroad. So his job was, he had a 6-foot pole, about 1 inch across. He would make a hole in the stone, put dynamite in it, and tap it in. Lovely job. One time he was a little aggressive tapping that dynamite in. So it exploded, dynamite exploded. The pole, which is 1 inch across, went above his left eye, through the back of the head, and flew 20 feet.
Okay.
So he went to Mayo Clinic in its day. They examined him. They go, he can walk, he can talk, no problem. He literally had a brain this big through his brain. They said, everything is fine, go away. Well, there was a couple of problems. He became animalistic. Anytime he saw a woman, he started attacking her. The point is, if you have brain change, if you're walking and talking, it doesn't mean you don't have a literally hole in your head. Right? In this case, it did. So what it did for him, it whacked his limbic system. So he became animalistic. So the point is, biology of the brain cannot and should not be ignored. It's there. We forget about it at our peril. That's a problem.
Yes. Now, here's where biology meets solution. So you pioneered a treatment called dual sympathetic reset, DSR, and it derived from stellate I might be saying it improperly.
Let me help you. Stellate.
There we go. Now, this is a medical approach showing about 80% success rate in reducing trauma symptoms. So instead of just talking about trauma, this method could actually directly impact the nervous system. It resets stress signaling, and it helps the body unlearn danger. So this is real biology meeting real recovery. So can you tell us a little more about this and how it works?
Yeah, 100%. So basically, I was alluding to before. So when so here's how the system is organized. So you need to know one neurological structure. I'm not going to bore you too much. Amygdala. Amygdala is what exists to prevent us being killed. So antelope has amygdala, a rat has amygdala, human has amygdala. When an antelope hears a little click and it thinks there's a predator, start running. Why? No idea, but it runs. So amygdala, that's its job. So if the amygdala gets overactive, then you feel always revved up, right? So if you look at a brain scan of somebody with PTSD, their amygdala is overactive. Fact.
Yeah.
It's not a debate, it's a fact.
Right.
So turns out fight and flight system starts in the brain, goes down the spinal cord, goes back to the neck, and goes back to the amygdala. So there's a whole loop like that.
Right.
And it passes through the nexus called the stellate ganglion. It sits in the neck.
Right.
Again, if it's set, so it's normal like that. Now, if somebody has either severe trauma or multiple little traumas or bullying or whatever, those nerves that go from the brain into the chest, back to the brain through the stellate ganglion, they start to grow new nerves. It's called sprouting. As long as that persists, people have PTSD symptoms for years.
Right.
So stellate takes those extra nerves away, puts it back to the way it was supposed to be before trauma. That's called pruning.
Okay.
So the injection of a local anesthetic, that's what's used for pregnant women. What we do there, again, was numb it up, and the response could be in about 5-10 minutes, and it can last for years.
That's amazing. That's truly
We've got
amazing.
some pretty amazing results. That's why we're talking.
Yeah. So why does healing feel so hard? Like many people talk about therapy, journaling, or breathing exercises, and as if they don't work fully, but they conclude that healing is slow, or it could be long, but that's the only half of the picture. So what role does the nervous system play in maintaining anxiety and hypervigilance?
So I'll give you a broad answer to start with. So there is one of my favorite sayings: if you think you can, you think you cannot, you're right both times. Right? If you think it's going to take you 50 years to get out of your problem, guess how long it's going to take? Not 30 years, it's going to be 50 years.
Exactly.
So if you're thinking about it like that, you'll probably stuck like that.
Right.
But that's why we're trying to change the perspective from psychiatric to biological. Let me give you a real world example. So I'm a chief medical officer for Stella Mental Health. We are an international company. We have a clinic in Australia, in Sydney. So there was a patient there that was picking up dead bodies in tunnels. He was a policeman. Horrible.
Wow.
Anyway, so he was suicidal, he was depressed, he was severe PTSD, all of that. His treater was a psychiatrist and a therapist. Same guy. 5 years, no response. No progress at all, like nothing. Couldn't make any progress. He had the stellate ganglion block done. And then poof, 2 weeks later, he was a changed man.
Wow.
Because what happens is if you can calm down, you can actually talk to the patient. If you can calm down, you don't need the medications anymore.
Yes.
That's key, right? Because if you think about it, to me, if you have a broken leg, right? And then you're trying to build muscle. So now you put a rucksack on, which is about 50 pounds, and you go up and down the mountain, you're not going to be very effective with the broken leg, right?
Right.
If you fix a leg, then you can carry the rucksack. The same thing, the same analogy applies here. The psychotherapist, trauma-informed psychotherapy, or one of my favorite is therapeutic modalities is called Family System by Dick Schwartz, who happened to have been my therapist. Those become very effective. But first, you need to calm down the overactivity with sympathetic nervous system, and then things are much better.
Right. Now, why do traditional approaches sometimes feel incomplete?
Because you never solve the problem. So there are a couple of ways to do it. So amygdala, right? We've talked about the amygdala. It controls anxiety.
Yes.
So when you do conventional psychotherapy, that's, again, I'm simplifying it a bit. What that does, you need to take the power of your neocortex, like prefrontal cortex, to suppress amygdala, saying, amygdala goes, we're scared, while prefrontal cortex goes, nothing to see here, we're fine. But because amygdala is such a basic part of the brain, prefrontal cortex, you have to tell yourself you're good all the time, right?
Right.
So now if the amygdala is down, then prefrontal cortex goes, okay, nothing to see here. I'm just going to live my life. So the
Right.
same thing here. So if you are working very hard, 90% of your brain energy is used to saying, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. It never is going to feel complete because you're not safe because amygdala tells you it's not safe.
Right.
You have to address the amygdala,
Yeah.
not the PFC. PFC is a second order treatment. First order, calm down the amygdala, calm down the amygdala. If you can do that, so deep breathing activates the vagus nerve. That's the opposite of sympathetic or fight or flight nerves.
Yes.
But still, it's not strong enough a lot of times. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why a lot of times people take major tranquilizers, so they're zombies walking around because they don't want to feel anything. But then, like the guy I told you about originally, 50
Yeah.
years he suffered. He tried everything, drugs, legal, non-legal, nothing.
Right.
So we did the block on him. He cried for half an hour like a baby. I was like, I thought I broke this guy. He was like 70 years old.
Yeah.
And I said, why are you crying? He said, I have not felt an emotion for 50 years because the body basically said, emotions are bad. I'm going to suppress it. I'm going to take all the energy I can to do that. So that's why
Yeah.
it's incomplete.
Wow. How does the biological reset add to emotional work?
Well, I mean, but think, okay, so let me give you another example. You know, you're old when you have examples for everything. So we took care of a guy, Jason Brown. There's a lot of videos about him out there. And this gentleman was special forces from Peoria, Illinois. So he was patrolling the street in Iraq. 10-year-old child was sent to take him out, take
Yeah.
out the squad. He shoots the child explodes, piece of child hit him, horrible. Comes home, tries to kill his wife a few times.
Wow.
So we do the block, and he said, I remember doing all of that. But
Yeah.
now it's black and white. The color is gone. So there are
Right.
two memories. There is an amygdala memory, which is an emotional memory, and the hippocampus, which is regular memory. So
Right.
amygdala got deactivated. So if you can deactivate the amygdala, again, back to the same part of the brain, amygdala gets deactivated. Now it doesn't bother you. Now you can say, this bad things happened. It
Yeah.
was line of duty. You didn't do anything wrong. This is what happened, but it's no longer bothering him.
Yes.
But if he didn't get treated and you try to talk about it with a therapist, it's a complete meltdown.
Right. Wow. Now, people often ask, why do what can I do today without specialists or without prescriptions?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, meditation. Meditate. Meditation grows brain tissue, especially PFC, prefrontal cortex. So meditate. Two, a lot of times people with anxiety have difficulty sleeping. One of my favorite ways to get to sleep is doing yoga nidra. Basically
Mm,
lying down and you go, okay, I'm relaxing my toes, I'm relaxing my leg, and so on. It's a marvelous way to go to sleep. Number three, yoga is great because it activates the vagal nerve.
mhm.
Vagus nerve is opposite sympathetic nerves. Number four, play Tetris video games. So Tetris video game activates hippocampus. Hippocampus suppresses amygdala as well.
Oh, really?
So I presented those findings at American Psychiatric Association 2 years ago. Anyway, the bottom line though is those are specific things you can do. And then don't forget the diet. Like when people drink 6-hour energy,
Mhm.
they're just stupid. You're already revved up. Why revving yourself further? Don't drink too
Exactly.
much coffee. Then, a lot of people who have PTSD take a large amount of various drugs, legal
Mhm.
or illegal. So let's say if you take heroin, you go high, you're comfy, and then you crash, come,
Right.
and so on. You keep doing that. Or people can't sleep, so now they take amphetamines and things like that. It rubs them up further, potentially makes PTSD worse. And then diet, right? I mean, it's like you want something that's not particularly spicy. You don't be able to sleep. If you have
Yes.
gut problems, fix that. All of those basic things needs to be taken care of. And the
Right.
other thing is, keep in mind, I'm just a regular doctor, right? I'm not a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So get the blood work done, make sure you don't have infections, you're not anemic, all the basic things that people forget. Sometimes anemia can present as anxiety.
Yes.
Treatment will be very different, right?
Mm-hmm. That's 100%. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the different services that you provide?
So so I operate in Chicago. So we
Hmm.
have our flagship in there. So I could do stellate ganglion block or DSR, dual sympathetic reset. We also do ketamine infusions, and we also do nasal ketamine. We also do TMS, which is transmagnetic stimulation. And that actually regrows or fixes brain neurons. It works very well for depression. It takes longer. Stellate is the fastest thing.
Hmm.
Um, and I also developed something called SOF method, which is special operator force method.
Hmm.
So a lot of military guys had head injury and they had PTSD. So it's two different things: TBI, traumatic brain injury,
Yeah.
plus PTSD. So combination of ketamine and stellate seems to work together. So there's
Right.
synergistic impact.
Now, for someone who might have post-traumatic stress injury, is there a specific red flags or symptoms that they should, be aware of?
Well, first of all, the easiest way to do it is ask the spouse or significant other in your life or a parent. They'll tell
Hmm.
you. But if you're jumpy, if you're always cranky, you can't sleep, right? Hypervigilance,
Yeah.
right? Which is looking around all the time, can't
Hmm.
relax. Feeling of doom is one of the big ones. So if you feel something bad is going to happen regardless, then those are signs of problems. So one of the ways to figure it out, you can go to my website, dreugenelipov.com. You can take a PCL checklist, PTSD checklist, which is standard. So if you're about 45, you'll probably have it. But the ones I've told you about, so sleep dysfunction, also if somebody touched you in the shoulder, you feel like whacking inside the face,
Hmm.
that's probably something's going on. Those are subtle signs that things are not normal. At least
Right.
you may have had it forever, but it still ain't good.
Yeah. A
The
hundred
other thing
percent.
is, keep in mind PTSD or stress leads to infertility. So we've
Mhm.
treated some people who were able to get pregnant after stellate ganglion block.
Wow. Trauma isn't just a personal flaw, and I want to make this clear to the listeners. And it's not a weakness. It's not something you should just get over. It's a physical imprint, and knowing that it opens the door to real recovery. Now, if this episode has shifted you in how you think about anxiety, startle response, or long-term stress, that means something is important has just begun. The reconnection between the body and the mind. Now, every listener deserves tools backed by real science and real results. And Dr. Lipov, the work you're doing is the bridge that actually connects the two, and that could be life changing to other individuals. And I'm so glad that you came on the show today to share this. And I hope you'll be back. And I really would love to go deeper into this because there's so many different angles and things we could discuss because I feel so many people out there suffer from post-traumatic stress injury and they've just never been diagnosed. They don't know about it. They don't know enough about it, and a lot of people it wasn't a big thing. It's looked at more now. People are starting to really focus on post-traumatic stress disorder, and net people don't always it's starting to be recognized but not recognized enough by society of post-traumatic stress injury. And it really needs people need to understand what it is. They really need to understand the options, that it doesn't mean you're stuck. It doesn't mean that life ends. There are solutions out there. They are the services out there that could actually help the body and the mind reconnect and reset itself. And I'm so glad you came on the show. Before we end this episode, is there anything else that you'd like to include in our episode that we haven't discussed
Let
that
me
you
show you
think?
one thing. It talks about the history where it all came from. It's called the gut shot because some of the Marines called stellate ganglion block gut shot because it changes lives. It'll
Yes.
be available on Amazon on the 17th of this month.
Oh,
So I
wonderful.
think it's beautifully written, not by me, by this young lady, Lauren. But I've had something to do with it, but she is actual writer. But I think it's a book of hope that it's possible to get better.
Yes. 100%. That's wonderful. And so everybody remember that it's coming out this month and it'll be available in Amazon. And I'm looking forward to reading it myself. I think it's a wonderful book to actually learn about because I think so many people suffer, especially nowadays in this generation. We've gone through so much in life, and you don't have, a lot of most military people who come out of the military do have post-traumatic stress disorder, and they probably do have post-traumatic stress injury, but it's all, they're finding a lot of people who've gone through trauma in life, a lot of people who've gone through things in life also have it. So it's not just people in the military. Lots of people could have this, and they don't even realize it, and there's options, there's ways, and there's solutions. So I thank you so much, Dr. Eugene, for coming on the
Thank
show.
you.
And it's been a pleasure, and I hope you'll be back. And I really look forward to.
Absolutely. Maybe at the end of this year, we're going to have two new studies coming out, and I think it's going to change the world as we know it.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I'd love to have you back. You have a wonderful day. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.